Have you all ever wondered how some of our cartoons from the 90s were ever created? What inspired these creators to actually imagine these cartoons and bring them to life? I know there's motivation behind it. So, technically, let's just say theories are a thing. We all know this. Sometimes the theories are just downright inaccurate, while some of them are pretty accurate, while some of them make sense on a more scales, or rather as good, or maybe something a little more tragic. Take Rugrats, for instance. Rugrats, as we all know, is a fun loving cartoon featuring all these little babies going on the misadventures in their own imagination. But how about the story or how the creator of the story got its ideas? For instance, why don't we take a deep dive into something very, very dark? The Rugrats really was a fragment of Angelica's imaginations. Chucky died a long time ago, along with his mother. That's why Chad's such a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy was a stillborn. That's why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son who never had a chance to live. The DeVilles had an abortion. Angelica couldn't figure out where it would be on the boy or a girl, thus creating the twins. As for all growing up, Angelica was a bipolar schizophrenic who, as a teenager, became addicted to various narcotics, bringing her back to her childhood, thus creating a world in her mind that she obsessed over. Because of the time lapse between the present and the last time she interacted with her imaginary world, she made them older. Angelica was constantly taking hits of acid so she could never have to live without her creations. To her, her creations were her only company in the judgmental world. Angelica's mom actually died of a heroin overdose. Angelica was schizophrenic and bipolar because she was a crack baby. Additionally, Drew, in his depression, married a gold-digging whore that Angelica idolizes because she fooled herself into thinking it was her real mom. However, she also had a concept of her mother, Cynthia. She used the Barbie doll to mirror her birth mother's image, wearing an unwashed orange dress and jacked up hair, which is why she was so attached to it. Later in life, she followed her mother's footsteps, dying of overdose at the age of 13 when All Grown Up was canceled. The only Rugrat not to be fictional, however, was an unborn Tommy's brother, Dill. Whoever, Angelica didn't know the difference between Dill and his creations. Dill didn't follow her commands, and after endlessly crying and refusal of disappearance like the others did when Angelica was angry with them, so she hit him. After she hit him, he screamed and screeched tune, and Stu ran in and pulled his niece off with his only child. But it was too late. Dill had a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in deformation. As he grew up, the damage only became more evident, and by the time he was 9 and all grown up, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed for his weirdness and retardation. The immense guilt over this is what caused Angelica to start using drugs, and to uncreate the Rugrats briefly until her experience was hallucinogenic. Chaz lost his mind after the death of his first wife and was in denial that she was ever a prostitute. On the trip to Paris to find love, Chaz fell in love with a hooker named Kira. He was originally going to marry a different hooker, but she just wanted him for his money. Kira once had a daughter named Kimmy, but the baby was torn from her by law due to her cocaine addiction. Angelica imagined Kimmy from Kira's stories. Upon the return of Angelica, Chaz and Kira married and she got her green card. It was surprisingly happy and romantic story. Kira constantly struggled with addiction, but was relatively happy with her new life with Chaz. Susie was Angelica's only friend, who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations because they seemed to make her happy. She later became a psychologist and teamed up with Nickelodeon to make the Rugrats. When Angelica died of the overdose, Susie helped arrange her funeral. Because of her addiction and her mental state, Angelica was expelled from society, which led to the break with reality and her eventual death. She spent the last days of her life in the back of the school cafeteria, imagining friends around her and playing with the lives of her creation. So let this be a lesson to you all, my dear listeners. All the stuff that we've all loved as a cartoon, all the 90s, everything was amazing. But let's never ignore the fact that how they were made. Some of them are not as creepy as this, but sometimes the imaginations of the people who made these cartoons are made from real life events that are very, very unfortunate to the lives. Have a good night.